Hey guys, it's Andy again here, and welcome to week 5 of business strategy. This week we're moving on from our broader generic business level strategies that we talked about last week, and we're now considering those strategies are relevant when the firm decides to expand internationally. And this broad process is known as the internationalisation of the firm. We're going to go through quite a few key issues that come with this internationalisation process today, why firms do it, and potentially also some of the issues that may arise from it. Alright, so first of all, looking at the types of triggers, what sort of things cause firms to expand internationally in the first place, and what are some of the benefits, therefore, that may arise from that international expansion? We're going to look at why companies expand into particular countries, what we call determinants of national competitive advantage will cause a firm to expand into one country over another, as well as looking at the 3 broad international strategies that firms may adopt once they have multiple businesses across multiple countries. We'll then look at the different entry modes that firms can use, the different ways in which they will enter these foreign markets, as well as finishing with some of the risks that are associated with international strategies. Alright, so in terms of the type of international strategy that we're going to look at for this unit, unfortunately it has nothing to do with our friends at Prestige Worldwide. A shame, I know. But the type of international strategy that we are looking at is that through which a firm sells its goods or service outside its home country. So whenever a firm sells products or delivers services outside of its native country, it is engaging, willingly or not, in an international strategy. What you might find, and what you typically find these days, is that almost every firm, certainly except perhaps the very small firms in their infancy stages, are either intentionally or not adopting an international strategy. The reason why that is the case, and if you think about it, if you as a firm have a website, then you typically are able to engage in international business. This is especially the case, of course, if you have an online store. That means that people in foreign countries are able to buy your products and often ship them abroad internationally. That means that you will need an international strategy. So with that being the case, what are the sorts of triggers that we see that are causing firms to expand internationally? Well, the first, as you can see here, is to extend a product's life cycle. Now, we find this is especially the case if your firm is operating in a domestic industry that has reached its mature stage, that is usually typified by things like stagnant or potentially even declining sales within that particular industry. If that is the case, then you are usually, as a firm, looking to expand your sales in other ways, and the most obvious way to do that is to gain access to additional customers in foreign markets. So if we take Australia, for example, there are only so many people within this particular country that you can sell your products to. So if you find that your industry has reached that mature stage where we find stagnant or potentially even declining sales, the only way for you to increase the number of sales for your firm is to expand internationally and gain access to new groups of customers overseas. Another key reason why we see firms internationalizing is to gain access to raw materials. Now, this is especially the case if your firm relies on certain raw materials as key parts of its production process. And what we tend to find is that a lot of the time firms will expand overseas to reduce the transportation times from one country to another. Potentially, if you can establish your own operations in that foreign country, you don't have to rely on somebody else to supply that for you. Also, we see opportunities to integrate operations on a global scale. There is very much borderless demand for globally branded products today. We see a lot of items which can be sold across a number of international borders without that much adjustment needed. And a good example here would be Apple. A lot of their products are pretty much the same in terms of their differences from one country to another. So we see this global demand now that firms are looking to take advantage of. There are also opportunities to better use rapidly developing technologies, the internet being the obvious example here. 25, 30 years ago, for most firms, there was no such thing as an online store. So these days, it's much, much easier for firms to utilize technologies like the internet to not only raise awareness of their products, but in many cases, actually sell it to those foreign markets. Finally, we also see gaining access to consumers in emerging markets as another key reason why firms will internationalise. This is especially the case if you're an Australian firm, for example, looking to gain access into an emerging market, and typically those in Southeast Asia are very common examples of the types of markets, types of emerging markets rather, that we see Australian firms targeting. Alright, so a good example of a firm that is engaged in international expansion is Procter & Gamble. And now, as you can see on the side of your screens, they do produce a wide range of products in a wide range of industries, and this expansion of their corporation has been facilitated by their internationalisation. Procter & Gamble established themselves as a company in 1837, originally in their home market of the United States. And as you can see, they originally produced just soaps and candles as a relatively narrow product range. By 1915, they'd expanded internationally into Canada, which is, of course, a separate country to the United States. By 1930, they'd purchased Headley & Sons, which was an English firm, and in doing so had expanded over into the United Kingdom. By 1948, they'd established a specific overseas division whose sole responsibility was managing these overseas foreign divisions. And by 1963, they had in fact established a European Technical Centre in Belgium, whose responsibility was to cater for the specific needs of their European customers. By 1973, they had entered the Asian market through the more specific Japanese market. By 95, the sales outside had actually reached a point where they were 50% of their total corporation sales. So at least half of their sales by this point were not even in their home country anymore, despite the US remaining their largest market. So their organisational structure by now had changed to 4 regional sectors, as you can see: North America, Latin America, Asia and Europe, as well as the Middle East and Africa. Each of these different regional sectors still reported to the Chief Operating Officer, who was located in the US, but you can see that there are now clear almost organisations within organisations as the company has expanded. And finally, by 2004, Procter & Gamble now has the workings of a global firm in terms of its organisational structure, with what we call a matrix structure put in place, where the organisational responsibilities were divided amongst regional marketing, product-based R&D and manufacturing, and regional logistics. So the firm has become much more complicated, and this is one of the byproducts that we do see of a lot of firms when they engage in internationalisation. Over the next few videos, we're going to talk about some of the positive things that will come out of that, as well as some of the potential negatives as well.